From the point of view that an agent or a realtor wants to be helpful, they can deem themselves being so helpful that they border on discrimination.
42 years after enactment of the Federal Fair Housing Act, anti-discrimination training is a mandatory part of real estate licensing. Yet today, buyers and renters continue to face steering and other forms of violations, including cases of unintentional discrimination.
We have a condo listed near a Korean church. So we put an ad in the Korean and says, perfect, for Korean because it's closer to Korean church, But things like that is not legal. So the agent needs to be aware of things like that. But I still see that though.
Mary Byatt is broker-owner of Byatt Realty, which operates throughout the Washington, D.C. metro. Although it's one of the most diverse areas in the country, discrimination, much of it unintentional, persists.
When agent gets too close to the client and they try to guide them in a direction that they think is the right direction, but it is obviously the violation of fair housing. For instance, they go to a neighborhood, they look at them and they say, oh, there are so many people like you in this neighborhood, or you're gonna like it because you feel like you're at home. And they think that they have done a fantastic job by saying that. And they're trying to put the client at ease, but the reality is they shouldn't do that because it is fair housing violation.
The Fair Housing Act, enacted in 1968 and amended significantly in 1988, creates 7 protected classes: race, color, religion, sex, national origin, disability, and familial status. Unintentional discrimination occurs when real estate professionals, in trying to be helpful, steer a client based on their race, national origin, or other factor relating to a protected class. Although there are no hard rules for avoiding unintentional discrimination, there are steps that you can take. Select homes to show based on buyers' stated criteria, not on what you think they'll like. Don't describe the good and the bad of a neighborhood or school because only your clients can make that kind of subjective observation. And avoid painting a picture of who should live in a property.
If someone has a disability of some kind, let's say they're in a wheelchair, and they come to you and they say, I want to get an apartment, and they're referencing a certain ad that was in the paper or one of your listings, and you say, and they want to be on the second floor, and you inadvertently say, well, wouldn't it be better if you're on the first floor? Basically what you're doing is you're taking away the option, the person's option. You're making the decision for them.
It's very important that realtors pay attention to their actions so that they don't take actions that do inadvertently steer people to a neighborhood or away from a neighborhood based on the composition of the neighborhood. Some of the actions that you could take that would be steering would be making comments about a particular neighborhood or some part of that neighborhood, for example, a school or a facility, in a more positive light to some consumers than you would to other consumers. So if you told a white client that this was a great neighborhood, the school was one of the best in the area, and they would be really happy here, and then you told a client of a different race that perhaps some other neighborhood would be great for them, or that they would find both neighborhoods equal, whereas so that you've inserted some bias into those statements, even if it's unintentional, that can have the impact of steering.
If you're possibly getting drawn into a conversation by someone, it could be a seller or a buyer. For instance, if you ask, If a seller asks you, what is the nationality or what's the race of the person, the minute you answer that, you have violated the fair housing laws. So you have to be really careful. And if that question is asked of you, you have to now step back and say, that's against fair housing. I cannot answer that. You know, it doesn't matter. You know, the only thing that matters is the person is qualified to rent or buy your house. That's all that matters. The law is there. You should know the law. If you're in real estate and you're a realtor, you need to know fair housing laws.